As soon as your hair starts to turn grey, it's time to look for a Rolex Day-Date. The Rolex Day-Date doesn't need any introduction. It's worn by presidents, actors, musicians, sports people, and perhaps by your neighbor. It is one of the most recognizable Rolex watches out there. The Rolex Day-Date was introduced in 1956, when Hans Wilsdorf, the founder of Rolex, was still alive. At that moment, Rolex also stopped producing their watches with complications like calendars and moon phases. Since 1956, the flagship model for Rolex has been the Day-Date. In case you're not aware, the Rolex Day-Date is only available in precious metals, and that always has been the case since 1956, when it was available in yellow gold, white gold, rose gold and platinum. There is one exception, and that's a handful of prototypes that were done in steel. But for the market, it's only precious metals. When I was a student, more or less 20 years ago, I saw my first Rolex Day-Date in the flesh. I tried one and I was hooked right away. But I did feel that I was not ready for it yet. I believe that I need to grow some gray hairs first. And now that time has come, since a few years already, I have to admit. So I started my search for the Rolex Day-Date. And before doing so, I needed to decide which model to get, because there are so many out there. I went for the Rolex Day-Date with reference number 18238. And as you probably know, the 8 stands for yellow gold. So the white gold model, for example, would be the 18239. This is the 5-digit Rolex reference. The most famous vintage Rolex Day-Date is perhaps the 1803, which has been in production for a long time and didn't feature any quickset for the day or the date. That changed in 1978, when Rolex introduced the 18038 for the yellow gold version. There was a single quickset. And it was the first Day-Date to feature a sapphire crystal. In 1988, Rolex introduced the 18238, featuring a double quickset. A quickset for the day and a quickset for the date. And I wanted to have this exact watch that has this double quickset, because to me it's annoying to only have a single quickset or no quickset at all. I also like this version because it's from the 90s and I love the 90s, so that also comes into play. The previous edition was a little bit thicker, which would suit my wrist, but in the end, I went for the 18238 with double quickset, the president bracelet with a beautiful concealed clasp, and it has a water resistance of 100 meters. The hunt for this watch took quite some time. I really love the Day-Date, but I want to find the perfect one for me that has little to no stretch on the bracelet. I want to have the champagne dial or gold dial, and this exact configuration with the fluted bezel and in yellow gold. Although I love white gold and I love red gold or platinum, I think a Day-Date, at least the first Day-Date, should be in yellow gold. And now that I have one, I'm already looking for a white gold version to add. To me, finding a Day-Date is mainly about the bracelet. As said, I wanted to have one without stretch. And this stretch occurs on gold bracelets, because especially if you wear them very loose, they will tend to wear. So the pins inside the bracelet will have some friction and will cause that the bracelet will become longer and longer over time. So it's a little bit of a hunt, and especially from pictures, it's often difficult to tell. But it's also why you see people holding up the watches like this in pictures on Chrono24 or eBay, for example, to show how bad or how good the bracelet is. When you're looking for a Day-Date, be aware that it's not over polished. There's nothing wrong with the polish, because even if you have the watch service at Rolex, they will polish the watch in a very good way. When things are over polished, the fluted bezel will lose its sharpness, the case will lose its form and shape basically, and it just doesn't look good. It's too round and they take away too much material in the end. So try to find a proper sharp version. It's difficult to tell this from pictures, so that's why it is an advantage if you can see the watch in the flesh. So when I knew which model I wanted, the 18238, I could start my search on Chrono24. I could put in some some notifications. I looked on eBay and some other dealers online, and it was a long journey. And in the end, I found it on the wrist from another collector that I met during an event that was held in the Netherlands. And so I was able to look it up in the flesh, see how sharp it is, and it was not even for sale back then. Only after a few weeks, he offered it for sale on his Instagram. I shot him a note, and basically I went for it because I knew the watch and I knew what he was offering. So this particular watch ticked all the boxes for me. It has nearly no stretch on the bracelet. The fluted bezel is still sharp. It came with enough links, so a full precedent bracelet comes with 24 links. I'm almost embarrassed to say I need 23 links. It came with 22, so I bought an extra link. And of course, it's always fun to have box and papers. This watch came without. I sourced the box from elsewhere, but it's a time or period correct box for this 1991 model with X reference. You can find the booklets fairly easy. This one is pretty interesting, with a Rolls-Royce on the cover. This is the instruction manual, and there's a more generic booklet that says your Rolex Oyster with, funnily enough, exactly the same watch that I have here. As you know, the Rolex Day-Date is available in two sizes. It's 36mm, which is the original size, and 40mm. I tried both. The 40mm wears quite nice. I can have it on my wrist, it's no problem. I just don't like the shape of that watch. It looks a bit too big, too enlarged, a bit too flat. And I think the 36mm has exactly the right design ratio, and yeah, it wears very, very comfortable on my fairly large wrist. So for me, the 36mm Day-Date has the proper proportion for this watch. You can also see it with the Rolex Explorer, for example. They went from 36 to 39 and now back to 36. I believe that 36 is the sweet spot for watches like this, the Day-Date, the Datejust and the Explorer. And now you might wonder about the pricing. A new Day-Date 36mm easily goes for 33,000 euros in the catalog. The 40mm is even a little bit more expensive, and then there are of course all these different dial configurations. But with the plain dial, I think they start around 30,000 euros. On the pre-owned market though, you will find Day-Dates with a leather strap for as little, relatively, as 10k. For a watch in this condition, you will pay around 20,000 euros, and if there's a box and original papers there, it will be a little bit more. Then, if you want to have a special dial like an onyx dial or a malachite dial or some kind of burlwood dial, that will really add up to the price, because these things are very rare and it can easily add up 10 to 20,000 euros for a Day-Date. So now that I have the Day-Date, I wear it quite often. It's still my honeymoon period, so I'm not sure how long this will take. But every time I put it on my wrist, I have a smile from ear to ear. And the watch really suits me, I have to say. I'm not sure whether this will be a watch that I can wear or will wear on a daily basis. Also because, well, there's a bit of a negative association with Rolex, and especially when wearing it in larger cities, so you don't want to flaunt it too much. But I have other watches for that, that I can safely wear outside or in the city without any issue or anything to worry about. But this watch is really nice to wear on the wrist. On the one hand, I think I should have bought it earlier. On the other hand, I was not grey enough back then. So I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about the Day-Date? Can you actually wear it when you're 20 or 25 years old, or should you wait a little bit longer? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video. See you next time.